All right, this is Carlo from Four Guys with Quarters here with
Shaun McCabe. I'm the production director at Insomniac Games.
And can you tell me a little bit about what you're doing right now?
Absolutely. We are putting the finishing touches on the Unspoken. The Unspoken is a PvP spellcasting game for the Oculus Rift that features Oculus Touch and is releasing with Touch on December 6th.
Sounds pretty exciting. How many members of the team does it take to put something like this together?
We've got most of our studio in Durham, North Carolina is working on it. So, at this point, it could be as many as 45. When we started, it was just 3 folks trying to figure out like what cool things we could do with the touch controller, like how it should feel to cast spells with touch. So it scales over time, but we're up to about 40, 45 right now.
Sounds really cool. When is it on track to be fully completed?
We never announce when we go gold, but it will be out on December 6th, like I said, with Oculus Touch. And also, I should mention this, if you pre-order Touch, or folks that pre-order Oculus Touch, we'll get the Unspoken for free, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's definitely really cool. I saw some video of it. It looks really interesting. It's really cool. Graphics look really good.
Thanks.
Story looks kind of neat. And any other projects after this that you guys are working on? Or
there's nothing that we've announced right now. At Insomniac, there are always a lot of amazing opportunities out there. I think that that's even more true than ever now, with the launch of consumer-facing virtual reality devices. And I think, ultimately for Insomniac, as long as we have opportunities to create new worlds, to make fun experiences for people, and that people, respond well to them, we'll keep on going.
How do you guys feel about the future of virtual reality?
I think the future is incredibly bright. I think that when we look at, there's this whole continuum of media in between, the real world and the virtual world. And so, when you look at things like augmented reality, for example, all the way to fully immersed VR, I think that this whole spectrum, it's some of the most exciting and transformative technology of our time in terms of how we digest content. I think that virtual reality, and I will call this pure virtual reality, where it's 100% digital content. I think it has the opportunity to take us places that we might never ever be able to go, to experience things that only exist in our dreams. And so, from my vantage point as somebody that loves creating those experiences, I think that VR is completely. I think it's an incredible thing. I think that there's absolutely no question that everybody is going to have a device that lets them seamlessly blend the real world and the virtual world. Whether that is, goes to full VR, or whether it's just about inserting some digital characters into the real world. I think that everybody's going to have this stuff, and so the future, again, I think is really bright for the space in general.
Now, this game, is it set to launch in the future, on Xbox or PlayStation VR?
That's an interesting question. It is an Oculus exclusive right now. But, furthermore, you couldn't do it. This game requires the touch controller. It's built around VR plus motion controllers. Would it work on a 2D screen? No way, especially with a controller. We feel that any VR game, if there's one thing that we've learned from our first 3 titles, any VR game needs to be self-evident why that experience can only happen in VR. And I think that the Unspoken completely does that. But as a result, it's not meant for a 2D screen. It's not meant to be played with a controller. It's meant for the way that we've made it.
Yeah, man, that sounds really cool.
It is. I'm jazzed about it. I've been making games for 15 years now, and I'm always excited about doing different things, but I think that this is such an incredibly exciting time. It really, really is.
Tell me a little bit about your experience in game development, other stuff that you've worked on.
Well, I have. I've been at Insomniac for it'll be 13 years in December. So a lot of the titles, Ratchet and Clank, Resistance, I worked extensively on. And all of our VR titles now. Before that, I actually started my career at Interplay, And the first game that I worked on was Giant Citizen Kabuto.
Oh, I never heard of that.
That is what a lot of people said. See, people either tell me that when they hear that, they're either like, I've never heard of that, or I love that game, will you marry me? There's like 7 people out there that freaking like think it's the coolest game ever. But that's kind of where I started. But you know, like I've been with Insomniac for a long time. I love the company. I think it's a really good fit for my sensibilities. I think that there's tremendous leadership and vision, and it's a place that has allowed me to grow into a lot of different areas. You know, I joined Insomniac as an audio programmer, but you know, over time I've gotten to explore all these different areas within making games, and in large part got to chart my own course on like really where I felt like I could contribute the most. And that is not something that a lot of other companies offer. And so, you know, some people ask me like, why do you stay at Insomniac for so long? And it's honestly because it's always different, you know? Like it's audio programming, and then there was some you know, generalist engine programming, and then I was a gameplay lead, and then you know, I got to open a new studio in Durham, North Carolina, and now I get to like, you know, produce all these VR projects that are totally different and figure out these things. It's like there's always a new challenge, and I think that's. I mean, it's one of the things that I really love about Insomniac, and I think that it, you know, speaks more or less exactly to what motivates me as a person.
How do you feel about the future of the video game industry, from where it started to where it's headed?
The future, man, it's so hard to predict the future. Who would have thought we would be where we are now? I think video games started as, what I think is interesting about it is that video games started as a mainstream accessible device that people could enjoy, that gave them the sort of experience that they could. It gave them an experience that they could do sort of sitting down and relaxing. You know, it was like literally a sport that you could sit for, but had some of the same, you know, cognitive motivators. I think one of the interesting things that's going to come up as we move forward, especially with things like VR is going to be able to realize experiences that mimic the real world really closely. And so I think if there's anything that's interesting about the future of gaming versus like where we are today, it's how being able to fully synthesize experiences is going to not only change, you know, the way we think about games, but I think it's going to like ultimately change our culture.
Growing up, what was your favorite game or system that you started on? Like, what was?
So I had an Apple IIc.
Oh wow.
The first game I remember, it was watching my parents play, and it was the Pirate Adventure on the TI-80. It's an old text adventure that ran off a cassette tape drive. When anybody ever asked me, like, one of my all-time favorites is a game, text adventure from Infocom called The Leather Goddesses of Phobos, which I think is just brilliant. I love Super Mario World. I love Super Metroid. Final Fantasy VII. I mean, I'm a big Final Fantasy. Basically, anytime you ask somebody like me what's their favorite game, it's impossible. I'm just going to give you like, I could list so many things, but I kind of always gravitate back toward Leather Goddesses, Chrono Trigger, Super Metroid, and Super Mario World.
And since you've been in the industry, have you had a chance to meet anybody that you looked up to?
Oh my God, yeah, all the time. I get to work with them. Yeah, it's amazing. I think I recently had a really, really, really awkward moment with Hideo Kojima, where I ran into him at a party, literally like physically ran into him and probably violated a litany of etiquette protocols by like forcing myself in his face. But I remember when I regained my composure, I just said to him, I said, you know, Mr. Kojima, you have been an inspiration to me in my career, and just thank you for contributing so many wonderful, you know, experiences, you know, to my life, which I hope he mostly got, and he kind of smiled. That was a pretty amazing moment. You know, and there's other people like, you know, getting to, you know, work with Jason Rubin, who's Oculus's head of content, but also founded Naughty Dog. I actually remember playing Jason's first game that he created with his brother, in like 1989 called Dream Zone on the Apple II GS. I think that gaming. I think I've been really fortunate to get to work with a lot of my heroes. Like getting to work with somebody like Mark Cerny has been. I mean, that's been really amazing. I've been really lucky, and I've also found that game developers tend to be fairly accessible and willing to share things. So even though like you feel, at least I feel starstruck because meeting somebody like Shu Yoshida or something like that, I feel starstruck, but he's a gaming guy, right? I think that's one of the wonderful things. There was one time when Miyamoto, we were at a Sony event. This was with Ratchet & Clank All for One, and Journey was next to us from that game company, and somebody whispered that Miyamoto was like coming up to the special area where we were showing the games. And we were really excited. We're like, well, he has to stop here, right? And I remember specifically, he walks by, and like I'm completely starstruck, right? Like, how could you not be like that? And he kind of calmly walks by, and then he walks in, and then he sits down and plays Journey, and we're just like, wait, over here, boy, we're over here. Which, I mean, it is what it is. It happens. But I think that is the one that got away for me. I would have loved, again, similar to Kojima, just to say, thank you for inspiring me to do what I do.
Another quick question, because I know that they said you're short on time.
Yeah.
But how did you start getting into game development? What got you into that?
Well, going back to the first computer I had, that Apple IIc, there weren't a lot of cool games for it. And so learning to program was sort of an avenue to making stuff that I would want to play. Later, it really just came back to a love for the medium in general, and crafting, interactive experiences, sort of the superset of what games are. Making games is something I wanted to do since I was really little. So I don't. There are a lot of detours as we grow up and we want to do different things. I remember thinking I wanted to be a lawyer at one point, which is crazy. I was into music for a long time, but I think I was always drawn back to games because it is this intersection of art and technology. Things that I love so much. It's really rare that you can find like this nexus of so many interests that I have. In audio and music as well. There's all these pieces to it that I really love, and gosh, I'm happy that it's worked out. Can I say that? I'm really happy.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And another quick question.
Yeah.
Did you work on Sunset Overdrive? Did you have a chance to work on that?
I played it a lot, and I wrote some feedback for it. I didn't work on it directly. There were some people in our studio that did, but some of our games are developed in the Burbank studio, some in the North Carolina studio. Sometimes we collaborate. Sunset was one that was almost everybody was in the Burbank studio.
I just want to say, I played Sunset. I loved it, and I wish it would have got more exposure out there. I thought it was a really good game.
Well, we always wish things got out there more. There are a lot of people out there that really love it. I mean, it was well received, and we're incredibly proud of it. One of my Marcus Smith, who is the creative director on it, is a really good friend and mentor to me. And I remember just seeing him on stage at one of those events. It was like the proudest moment, because I'm like, this is. Just seeing someone that you love and support and have learned all this stuff from, just kind of killing it up there. It was a really incredible experience, and I think that game is also such a perfect reflection of who he is. He's done a lot of direction, but I always think back to Sunset. This game is so Marcus.
And if you want to just shout out Unspoken again, the release.
I would, yeah. I will always shout out. Yes, the Unspoken, Magic in the Modern World, PvP spellcasting featuring Oculus Touch. It launches with Touch on December 6th, and if folks pre-order Touch controllers, they'll receive the Unspoken for free.
All right, sounds really cool, man.
Cool.